Just okay. Hello again, everyone. Bit more of a professional looking attire today. Just use it to make a video. The video I've just made is about how there's really nothing that we can do to help wild animals to improve their conditions. So for most wild animals, they're having a terrible time. They would be better off not being born. There's really nothing good about being an animal. And, even to be a pet or to be a rich person's animal, it's still a horrible life where you don't understand what's happening. You can't look after yourself. So yeah, they should be made extinct. And the thing is that for wild animals in particular, there's really absolutely nothing that can be done to improve their conditions. The main problem, the main death that they all face is predation, being eaten alive, but then there's also starving to death, freezing to death. So there's no way to even begin to improve conditions or life for animals or wild animals. So that's why total extinction is the only answer. There's no solution to even begin improving their conditions. Extinction is the only way to prevent their suffering, and their suffering is too extreme to allow. It's not being made up or balanced by anything. It really is just pure suffering with nothing that makes up for it. And there is nothing that could make up for it either, because actually suffering can't be balanced or justified or made up by pleasure or anything else. There's no amount of pleasure that can make up for a child being tortured. There's no amount of pizza that you can eat, no amount of ice cream you can lick that makes up for a child being tortured to death. So there's no ratio. Most people have this mistaken concept, this misconcept that, that somehow there is a balance and that the balance justifies all the suffering in the world. The balance is a myth. There never was a balance. The balance is just a placeholder for real thoughts, basically, in absence of them. So that's what I think most people kind of appeal to and think about. They think that there's some sort of balance to life in the world, that there is suffering, but it's made up for, it's outbalanced by the good. But that's completely wrong. It's a complete myth. It's baseless. There's no evidence to support that at all. The only sort of evidence for that is that some polls show that most humans are generally happy. But humans are a tiny speck of the population of our planet, less than 0.1%. So humans having a good time is completely irrelevant to the majority of the population on our planet. And even if most humans are happy, that doesn't make it okay for the minority to be tortured and to have the ultimate harm inflicted on them. So the ultimate harm, it's a really great way of describing it, because being forced to exist in a life of extreme hell, or the risk of a life of extreme hell, where the unlucky ones do face it, it is the ultimate harm. There is nothing worse, there's nothing that could be worse than being trapped in a life of extreme suffering. There's nothing even hypothetically worse. So it is the ultimate harm, and that's what most life is actually facing, the worst possible scenario. So there's really nothing that justifies that. There's no balance that justifies that. And even if there were, the majority is suffering terribly. But no, there will never be a balance that says, this many children being tortured to death makes up for, is justified by double the amount of people being happy. No, that just doesn't make sense. There is no ratio where we can mathematically say, you can buy this much happiness with this much child abuse. It simply doesn't work like that. There is no mathematic ratio, because the value is zero. The value of pleasure is zero when compared to the value of safety from extreme suffering. So, happiness is optional, existing is optional. You can do without it, right? So you don't need it. You can give it up. It's just a privilege that you can give up. But, safety from a life of extreme hell, That's not some sort of privilege that you can do without. It's not something you can trade or give up. It's not something that should be bargained with or, made out to be some sort of balance. So, no, it will never be, there's no amount of happiness that you can buy with child abuse. If we want to set an exchange rate, then, there is zero amount of happiness that you can buy with child abuse, or that you should be able to buy. Okay, but again, most people, the default, the status quo position is that it doesn't, there's no value on suffering. It doesn't matter. There can be infinite suffering, infinite severity of suffering, and it simply doesn't matter. Most people aren't bothered. So we're doing the stream to get some debates. So if you're interested in having a discussion, a debate, asking some questions, if you want to get your opinion out there, have a discussion, a conversation, join the queue. I'll bring you up onto the stage and we can have a chat. But the main reason for doing this stream and for making videos, it's activism to grow the movement for abolishing suffering. If we don't do this, it's never going to happen. Conditions for wild animals will never improve. The world is being run by dictators and violent people who take power and lie and steal to take power. So they're not really looking after the world. They're definitely not looking after those animals. And we have to do something about it. We have to change this. We have to change the world for the sake of these victims. It's not optional. It's not something that we can just ignore. Okay, so let's bring up our first guest. Hello, how are you doing?
Hey, James.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm from Australia. Where are you from?
England.
I think I just wanted to say, like, I like a lot of your ideas, but I think you need to put more of an emphasis on like the fact that we need to continue to like do it for the whole universe.
Yeah.
And I think also like there is a chance that like, I don't know, I made a comment that like we could like possibly make some sort of like reality or matrix like reality where like I think existence and like being is more preferable. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit I don't know. Anyway, is more preferable than like being like nothing at all if it can be enjoyable. Do you know what I'm saying?
But not in not in every single situation, though, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It'll be a species by species case. I think for humans, we could actually make a reality where, or like realities powered by non-sentient creatures, or not creatures is the wrong word, non-sentient machinery or something that like maybe it fucks up eventually, but like as long as like the people who were in it or whatever had an enjoyable time, it's preferable to non-existence is what I'm saying.
I would agree as long as there's no danger.
Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah,
sorry to cut you off. I mean,
sorry.
Before that, we should like end all the life that like isn't able to have that kind of experience. Sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, we support and agree with humanity existing and life existing as long as it's in safe conditions or if it's useful to helping other life. So we should work towards extinction immediately, and we can also work on improving conditions for humans. Now, if we get to the point where it's safe for life to continue, then that's fine. But we need to be doing extinction before that and immediately. And, if we never get to a point where it is safe for humans to be forced to exist, then they shouldn't be, right? So they should never be forced to exist in unsafe conditions unless it's absolutely strictly necessary, like it is for right now, for to be the vehicle for preventing suffering for others. So, basically, if we are no longer useful, if we can pass over the mission to AI and robots, then we would have total human extinction unless we have somehow got unlucky enough by then to have developed safe conditions for life. But we're not really confident on that. And what's more important is what we can do to prevent suffering and to provide safety from being forced to exist.
Okay, right. I understand what you're saying, but yeah, I agree. I literally agree with you. But like, let's say we were capable of like ending all life in the universe, right? That would be an extreme amount of like intelligence and like know-how of the whole universe, right? Like we'd need to know every nook and cranny of everything to do with reality, right? We'd need to know
Not
everything.
necessarily, no, not necessarily, mate.
Okay.
Because
But it
I
would,
mean, look, I agree
yeah,
that we
okay.
should aspire to that,
Yeah.
but sort of the main easiest part that we can do without having to go to all the extremes is dealing with the planets. Okay.
Okay.
So yes, we can work on making, extinguishing every last atom from the universe, but that's not strictly necessary to do some good already. It's what we should do. But, a lot of people, they come on the stream and they say, there's no way you'll destroy every last atom, and therefore we shouldn't even bother doing animal extinction on Earth, which doesn't require destroying every last atom, if that makes sense. So, as I always tell people, it's just about doing as much as we can and to just keep going until we can't do any more.
Do you think we should strive to do the most we possibly can, though? Because it's possible that people have, or like sentience has tried to do this before, and like they've failed. Maybe we could do the best possible job of it. And what I was trying to say is, if we ever get to that point of being able to do like the most we possibly can, it is possible that we could like have some sort of reality where we as humans, as individuals, would be able to have like some sort of reality where it could actually be an enjoyable experience. Would that be preferable to non-experience or no? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, so the only important condition there is whether or not it's safe. It's simple as that. It's either safe or it's not safe. At the minute, we have people saying, well, we don't need real safety. 50% safety is okay, 90% safety is okay, 99% safety is okay. But no, because, that still causes victims, right? So it's either 100% safe or it's not. That's what the decision is going to hinge on.
Okay, well, I don't know. I think you are positing a lot of good ideas, and I think you are like a cog in a part of like something. I think you are a piece, or like this idea that we are having right now or agreeing to is a piece of something we are moving towards that could be better. But yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm gonna go now. But like, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. You're a fucking legend. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate your time.
See ya. Bye.
And of course, consider joining the movement. You've got a lot of great ideas about, universe extinction. And you're right. Most of the suffering will be out there. Earth is a tiny minority in terms of how much suffering there is. So, well said. And yeah, consider joining the movement. Discord and WhatsApp at the bottom of the page on the website. Right. Let's keep getting some guests on. Keep getting some debates, some conversations. We're going to bring someone on who, if they're still in the queue. No, they're not still in the queue. Oh, yeah, they are. Okay, so this person is against extinction. It's Exasperated. Hello.
What's going on, Joe?
Yeah, not much. You?
Oh, not too much. Just chilling out. Hard day at work.
Cool.
Yeah, your statement is pretty fair. I am against extinction because it's hypocritical. It's there's a lot of double standards within it.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate?
Sure. So, ethically, you're against the thesis of veganism. You think veganism is a contradiction because there's suffering which is inducive from the application of veganism. Is that fair to say?
Well, vegans aren't looking at the bigger picture, and they blatantly discriminate against wild animals. So, they don't care if what they're doing causes more suffering because they don't care about wild animals.
In what case, though? Because So when I'm using veganism, I operate under a framework called sentiocentrism. So we understand in the animal kingdom, out in the wild, we're going to have predatorial and prey-based behaviors. So part of my ethical principle is we isolate or we create biospheres, which are artificial environmental habitats for these predatorial animals to try and reduce or mitigate the suffering as far as possible.
But
Because to
do you not
say that,
understand that it's literally it's everywhere? It's in the air. You know, you can't blink without seeing predation somewhere, right? You would the idea that you can have little biospheres. Maybe you're thinking about lions in the Sahara or in Africa or something, but that's nothing compared to the totality of it. That you can't seriously remove predation when it's everywhere.
but then you can really think about it on like a molecular
What are you going to
level.
do about frogs eating flies? I mean, come on.
Well, they're not sentient. Like they're just biological living organisms,
How do you
which
know?
have because there's been empirical studies and cases
Okay.
when we look at because
Do
sentience
you want
is
to quote them, cite them?
yeah, I can bring up studies real quick.
Right.
I'll try and find you a meta-analysis real quick. Yeah, so if we
So what it
actually
says, no animals are conscious then.
yeah, so if we actually look at the role society of insects, because there is a lot of conflationary reviews between if like some insects are sentient or if they're not, or if they are conscious. But it sort of extrapolates on the foundation that these insects operate under a different nervous system and their physiological adaptation behaviors don't correspond to the attributing features such as sentience. Because when we look at sentience, would you agree, James, is physiological behavior within an entity. And when I say an entity, I mean a subject. When I say subject, it's something with interests and desires corresponding to their theology. The theology's nature.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, so what's going to be the argument against that? What's the argument that
Well,
subjects
the
don't
burden of proof is
correspond?
on you.
Well, you disagree with a positive assertion.
Well, exactly. Yeah, the burden of proof is on you.
So if you disagree with a positive assertion, then the
I'm
burden.
not. I'm refusing to agree and to believe an assertion without any sort of basis. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So when I'm cashing out subject, it's going to be an Aristotelian view. Are you familiar with Aristotle?
No. Well, I
Okay.
know of him obviously, but I'm not like super in depth on it.
So Aristotle basically holds this view that an observer of reality is bound to the soul, and the soul has what's called a symmetric relation to their nature. Do you understand that claim?
Well, I would, I was expecting real science here, not, 1,000-year-old philosophers that, have never been in
Oh
a
no, no,
literature.
we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that. So, do you agree with that first statement?
No, I don't agree with any of it. I think it's all absolute nonsense, and that, we need real science, not to be looking in, 1,000-year-old, books like the Bible and stuff like that.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you disagree with assertion one. We can propose what's called axiom two. Axiom two, do you think a subject to have any form of experience has to have a mind?
Well, it depends on your definition of a mind.
So a mind is just going to be some fundamental component, some fundamental property dependent for the conscious state of experience to be necessary.
I would say that some consciousness is necessary.
Okay, but what grounds this consciousness? Like when we look at like a human or like an animal or like an insect and they have these conscious states of experiences, what is grounding that consciousness? What makes it so that consciousness is there and happening? Do you think it's parts of like a physical brain? Do you think it's a soul?
I think it's probably the the totality of the brain and sort of the phenomenon of it functioning.
That's a contradicting statement. So you think the brain is necessary for consciousness, but you're extrapolating on the idea that a brain is fundamental. So you think it's necessarily the case that a brain has to be present for the conscious state of experience to be actualized?
No, I mean, a brain is just one type of hardware, right?
Okay, so what's a brain to you?
I just said it. It's like hardware, right? It's like, we can think of this stuff as computers almost, right? So, think of the brain as the hardware, and then, you've got the mind as the operating system, the software.
Okay, sure. Let's break this down. So, you see here with my PC, we have the graphics card, we have the RAM sticks, we have in the back the motherboard, we have the SSD, the memory drive. How many of these components do I have to take out of my PC for it to no longer be this piece of hardware? As in, with the brain, we understand that a brain has all these multiple different parts: a frontal lobe, a cerebral frontal cortex, it has a hypothalamus, a thalamus, it has the endocrine system, for example, a brainstem, a subcortical connection, a thalamocortical connection, it has sepsis cells, it has neurons.
Yeah.
So when does it become the case that we can remove all of these external properties of that brain for it to not be the brain?
What do you mean to not be the brain?
Well, you're saying that the brain is this piece of hard drive, right? That's what you've said. Can we agree with that statement?
Hardware, yeah.
So when you're saying the brain is the hardware, what is it about the brain that makes it to be hardware? As in, does it have to consist of having all of these parts, or do you hold some disjunct where, for it to be a brain, there has to be like a thalamocortical connection or
No, I mean,
subcortical
obviously you've
connection?
got people that have had like half of their brain removed and, they're still conscious, they can still talk.
Yeah, well, I'm asking you for your burden because this is now your burden of proof, James. You have to elucidate on the idea
Well,
of
no,
what a
because,
brain
your
actually is.
entire argument revolves on rubbish, which is that, insects aren't conscious, but insects aren't the only animals, right? So even if they're less conscious or not conscious, which we can't be sure of, you've still got, mammals all over the
If we
planet.
backtrack, I said for sentient, not conscious. There's that, so this is an equivocation fallacy on your end, which would you like me to demonstrate how it's an equivocation fallacy?
Well, I'd like you to answer my question.
It's also a straw man. Yeah, so when we're looking at insects, for example, we can play back the live. I'm willing to bet you $500. If you're comfortable with the fact that I was not able to answer your question, then $500 you should be able to put your hand up and shake
Okay,
with me.
but you've essentially, gone, oh, right, yeah, animals do suffer, so I'm just going to talk about a specific type of life,
Why are you trying
which
to
probably
weasel your
doesn't
way
suffer.
out of this wager?
So basically, you're straw manning, and
What's
yeah,
a straw man,
it's
James?
a waste of time.
Demonstrate.
You're done.
Tell me.
You're finished. You're cooked and served. Yeah, I think we're done with your incredibly convoluted, extremely long-winded, highway to madness, basically. All right, let's get back to the queue. If you want to join, if you want to get on the stage, ask some questions, give us your opinion, have a conversation, a debate, now's your chance. Hello.
So I was coming up to basically ask, how do you plan to achieve it?
Yeah, so we're growing the movement until we have enough people to actually carry out total extinction. Then we would start doing euthanasia for total animal extinction while removing our dependence on animals, and also start researching how life develops on planets and how to prevent it from developing on planets so that we can do this for Earth and ideally as many other planets and the rest of the universe if we can.
However, I mean, how do you plan to make everything extinct? Because I'm just saying, when you think in a case of kind of forcing people into the idea, obviously you'd think not everyone is going to be on board with it ever. Not to mention also compared
you don't
to
know
you,
that.
Pardon?
I said you don't know that.
I do.
How?
People
Are you
value
God?
their lives.
Are you God?
No, selfishly.
So then you
exists. And
can't
I'm
make
just
a
saying,
claim.
right, No
about
one
what's
is going
possible.
to
You can't make a
voluntarily
claim,
say.
Isaac, about what's possible and not possible, right? You can't say something is impossible.
Okay,
Okay?
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm
You
saying,
did.
okay, so how do you plan to basically get everyone on board with the idea? But then how do you plan to make everyone basically gone, right? Because when you think about it, you can't go down the object of a nuclear deterrent, can you? Because
No.
obviously then bunkers exist, right? People could literally have that many, like that much resources and that much money.
You're thinking short-sighted, right? You know,
No,
nukes
I'm
and
not.
stuff like that. You know, we've got thousands of years to do this. The world is going to look completely different 100 years
Thousands
from
of
now.
years.
Yeah, you know,
Most
thousands of
likely
years
when
from
we will
now.
have colonized other planets by then.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter.
But we'll have colonized other planets.
You don't know that.
However, in 1,000 years, you'd expect kind of
Isaac,
the
you're
rate of
making a lot
evolution.
of extraordinary claims here with no
You don't know that
basis.
either. You don't know if that's
Making
possible,
yeah,
right?
but you're making claims and
Expected it's on a
assertions, right?
scale of evolutionarily.
Isaac, let's try and stay
Evolutionary
grounded in
decline.
reality. Let's try and
Okay.
stay grounded in reality,
I'm
and let's
trying to
keep
say to you.
our claims and assertions a little bit more realistic and grounded.
Okay, on the expected path of our evolutionary incline, we are expected to at least colonize one other planet in our solar system in whatever so years. What's it called? You are saying that
I don't think so. I don't think that's actually accurate.
You don't think it's accurate that we're going to have the technology to colonize another planet in 1,000 years?
Oh, in 1,000 years, yeah, probably.
Well, you just said 1,000 as kind of your perspective of when it'll
Okay,
be
let's
strong
roll
enough.
with that. Let's roll with that.
Yeah, so people would have colonized other planets by then, you expect.
So it might be hard to get all of them, but you know, it might not be hard.
However, I mean, yeah, this is just personally, I'm not going to kind of debate anymore. However, I will say the movement is a bit insane. I think
Okay.
you yourself
Well, Isaac,
are insane.
you've made a clown of yourself, a fool of yourself. You know, leave the remarks about insanity to be made about you, right? You know, when you can come on and make a proper argument, then, you know, once you've actually won the debate, instead of chickening out and saying, okay, I've lost, right? Then you can make your insults, but not before you've won. Okay, we've got another person joining. Let's bring them up. We've got Fit Central joining us. Hello, Fit Central. Welcome back.
Hey,
How's it going?
I'm back. I did have one question. If we continue on the path that we're on now, do you think we'll all be extinct within a couple thousand years? Or
No, I don't think so.
If we were to just use one method, like knock out one cornerstone in our circle of life, it would probably accelerate it enough to be satisfactory for you, or no?
No, not at all. So, you know, we're just one planet of many in the universe. What we need is for humanity to be the vehicle for preventing suffering for others. We live in a world which is effectively hell, where life is forced into this hell en masse. So we need a force, a power that's going to prevent all of this suffering, provide safety from it. So that's what humanity needs to be. We need to do that for animals on Earth, make them extinct to prevent their suffering, and do that for other planets as well if we can. You know, we're just one of many, and you know, the other planets are most likely not going to have intelligent life, but rather have animal life suffering terribly for billions of years. It may, you know, get intelligence after some billions of years of horrific suffering, but you know, that's, you know, probably a low chance anyway. So yeah, we need to help all the other victims out there.
And you're assuming that everybody isn't a victim, right?
No, I never
think
said
I heard
that.
that correctly.
No, I never said that. That's a straw man.
So who's not a victim?
Well, you know, so some people are oppressors at the minute. You know, you've got people saying that the suffering should continue.
Yeah, there's lots of people in power that think that suffering should continue. Is this
Well, most
organization going to stop that?
Yeah, most people think that. You know, people are in power. We're in a democracy, and yeah, you know, the vast majority of people want the suffering to continue. They find it beautiful.
That's very true. And is this group against the other groups who don't believe, because there are groups that believe similar things to you, just not extinction. There are groups that believe that all suffering should be ended. But is
Yeah,
this good?
we're against all of them. None of them have a practical solution. None of them
Really?
are non-discriminatory. So, we are the only real solution, the only real movement fighting for all victims. We're the only movement that says, if there's a victim out there somewhere, we'll fight for them. Every other movement says, we only care about a small group. Everyone else can go screw themselves. And, we don't care about reaching every last victim. So we do, right? It's about doing as much as we can to be as good as we can. Whereas, most people don't have that.
No, I've actually heard about another group, jw.org. They believe in the
Yeah,
rehabilitation of the whole entire universe.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you a Jehovah's Witness?
No, I'm not. But I have heard what they stand for and stuff, and it sounds like they stand for the rehabilitation of every single living thing, all life in the entire universe. And that's what they're going for. It seems like all the humans that participate, including the animals that domestic or non-domestic, it seems like their organization fights for
What are they
justice
doing?
for all.
What are they proposing doing?
Well, they have, from what I know, they
Nothing.
not just the missionaries,
So
but they go to
nothing.
different countries and they
Yeah, but they're not going to they're not going to abolish suffering, are they?
no, that's, I think what they believe is that they're going to work with God to do that. I think they think
they're
that.
crazy. They have no plan to abolish suffering.
I mean,
Why are you bringing them up?
according to them, the plan is that very soon God is going to come and they're going to work with God to wipe out the people in power.
Fit Central, everybody. Thank you for coming on. For more Bible stories, follow Fit Central's channel, or don't. Queue is currently empty, so if you'd like to come up and have a conversation, ask some questions, have a debate, a conversation, discussion, now's your time. Slap that button. Let's bring you up on the stage. Let's talk to you. Let's get you on microphone. In the meantime, while we wait for the queue to get its first person so we can have a debate, let's talk again about suffering and what the priorities for the world should be. We should be working towards a world with a zero tolerance policy on suffering. What's the alternative? It's to say that, if children get abused to death, then it's acceptable. You are saying that's acceptable if you're saying that, we shouldn't have a policy against that, okay? So most people will say, of course we should have a policy against that. But then at the same time, they're saying we should still make it possible for it to happen, though, right? So if you can end, if you can have total extinction and, make sure it never happens again, but you choose not to, then you are making the choice that life should continue being forced to exist and to continue being forced into lives of pure hell for the unlucky ones, who are the majority, by the way. The majority of life is animals having a horrible life. So, to say that should continue, that's evil, that's wrong. We should be working towards a world where we say no child deserves to suffer, no child deserves to be abused, and that every child deserves safety from this. Okay, we've got someone else queuing up to come on. Let's bring them up. We've got Inyenzi. Hello.
Yeah, what's the difference between this and atheism?
Great question. So atheism is like the unevolved form of this. Atheism is against activism, against organized activism, against actually doing anything about. It's about saying, yeah, life is bad, but let's not do anything about it. Let's LARP. Let's talk about it for fun, but let's never try to actually change it. So it's saying it's bad, but not. It's not taking action to follow what they're saying. Whereas we are. Okay, so we're putting our money where our mouth is. We're saying, yeah, let's actually do it. Let's have total extinction and abolish all suffering.
I don't see the difference. Like Gary Mosher and Amanda Sukanik have been saying this for like 10, 15 years now.
No,
Same
so
thing. We should kill everything. We should make a red button.
no. So Gary is against extinction. We've spoken to him. We've debated him. You can look it up on YouTube. If you search on YouTube, extinction roast in Mendham, you'll see he's against extinction. He wants the suffering to
All
continue.
right, I'll check it out.
Yeah, do. I'm quoting him, and you can come and ask me again about it afterwards if you want.
Okay.
But yeah, he said that we shouldn't do activism for it. We shouldn't take any action to actually make it happen, and that we shouldn't cause extinction. It would be bad. That's what he said. So the reason we approached Gary is because we thought, yeah, he could be an ally. He could join the movement, but he was against it, and he said that we shouldn't try to end suffering.
When you say end suffering, I think what you're doing is you like suffering is not this thing divorced from the feelings of an organism, right? So what you're really talking about is ending the lives of all organisms on Earth. And so I think when you look at the natural world, all organisms want to live, right? They struggle, they battle, they
No,
even kill
that's
each
not
other
true.
to survive.
That's not true. That's not true.
It is true.
No, it's
It's
not.
like baked into the nature of all organisms.
No,
They want
there's
to
lots
live.
of people that
So
don't
you're
want to
making an
live.
aesthetic judgment.
No, you're just spouting bullshit.
No, you're making an aesthetic judgment of the
But there's
world
never been a
as
person
bad
that didn't
because it
want to live.
contains suffering, and you want to destroy it. because you
Okay,
don't
you're not
like it.
answering the questions. You're done. You're finished. You're cooked. You're served. Once you just start spouting nonsense and avoiding the questions, you're out of here, buddy. All right, so the queue is empty still. If you want to come up, have a conversation, a debate, let's get you in that queue. Let's bring you up on the stage. Now's your chance to have a debate. Let's do it. Let's hear your opinions. Let's hear your questions. Let me engage with them. Let me explain this to you. Come and ask them. In the meantime, we're going to take some questions and comments from the chat. Let's see what we've got to work with. He said it would take thousands of years. Sounds like a dream to me. It might not take thousands of years. If everyone became an extinctionist tomorrow and we did an organized total extinction of animals with euthanasia, it probably wouldn't take thousands of years. We could do most likely the vast majority very quickly, and then it would be a case of the more difficult ones to reach, like at the bottom of the ocean and stuff like that. But probably not thousands of years. All right, the queue is still empty. So we are still waiting for someone, a hero from the audience, to come up on stage, to request to join to come up on stage, and to school everyone, to school me, right? Got lots of people in the comments saying, oh, I disagree with this. Well, come and school me, come and engage, come and explain why you disagree. Let's hear it. I'm an open-minded person. If you've got logic, if you've got some sort of debate, some argument that's going to try and convince me that we should allow child abuse, then let's hear it. I want to hear it. Our position is based on rationality, logic, reason. So that means that we're not like just cult, like it's not a cult-like mentality. It's based on logic. So if your logic is superior, then you should be able to explain that and we'll understand it. And, there has been a couple times when people, sort of corrected me or made me think about things differently. Cora B says, James, you've got beautiful eyes. Thank you. The queue is still empty. So if you want to join debate, now's your chance. But yeah, we should work towards a world where every child is safe from a life of hell. What's more important, being alive and maybe having a good life, maybe, but at the same time being in extreme danger of a life of extreme hell, and knowing that your compatriots, your equals, are also in that danger and that many of them are falling to it. Why would you want to be in that? Why would you essentially want to be in hell where, only the lucky ones are just about surviving? And why would you want everyone else to be tortured and for the small minority to be clawing their way to survive? It's truly like the worst world that we live in, and yet that's what people support. So it's nuts. So yeah, we need the total abolition of suffering. No animal deserves to suffer, yet most of them suffer so bad that they'd be better off not being born. Far too many humans suffer so bad that they'd be better off not being born. So it's for them, it's for the victims, it's for the sufferers that we're fighting. Everyone else is happily condemning them to suffer, saying that the suffering should continue. We're the only ones speaking out for these victims, speaking out for animals, humans, and life, which is trapped in extreme suffering, trapped in a life of pure torment and torture that they didn't ask for, okay? You have disabled human children who have brain damage, chronic pain. You have, paralyzed humans. You have extremely depressed humans. You have humans with schizophrenia, extreme mental illnesses, extreme pain, extreme depression and agony that end up killing themselves because it's so bad. And then you also have the ones that don't do that because they just can't work up the courage to do it. And so they end up trapped in a horrible life indefinitely. So that's happening right now. And, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. It's the ultimate harm for both humans and animals. And yet people are supporting it. So, you have the worst harm possible, the worst harm imaginable happening to the majority of animals, and then to a very large portion of humans as well. And so you have just a small minority of life on the planet, which is the lucky and privileged humans, the ones that aren't suffering that badly, saying the suffering should continue. So it's disgusting, it's reprehensible. We shouldn't treat life as a collective, because then there's just nothing that nothing too bad that can happen to an individual, right? If you just make it all about the collective, then you ignore the individuals. You're saying children being abused is fine as long as the collective is okay, right? So, but that doesn't make any sense. The collective is essentially privileged humans running society and oppression. Okay, so the same humans running the oppression are running the meat industry. They're torturing animals for meat and for food. They don't need to do it, and yet they're happy to do it. They're happy to wear their skin, to wear their fur, and to keep torturing them just for small little privileges. To put animals through an entire life of hell and torture just for one sandwich, basically. So that is the extent of human cruelty and oppression. So, the same people saying, oh, we need to work towards a better world, these are the same people supporting animal cruelty, supporting cruelty to humans, human slavery, building iPhones and all that. So these are incredibly immoral people coming up on the stream saying, no, let's not abolish all suffering. Everything about them is immoral, right? They are literally in the worst world possible with a glass of champagne, overseeing all of the suffering, saying, the suffering is beautiful though, right? They couldn't be more cartoonishly evil, basically, okay? And that is the real situation that we're in. People really can't man up and mature enough to accept the reality that we're in, right? So people are trapped in this childish mentality of, no, everything's fine, ha, ha, ha. Whereas we actually have children being tortured everywhere, and we have to be adults. We have to be responsible and do something about it, okay? Most people are just, they're like kids, essentially. And mean bullies of kids saying, let the suffering continue. And meanwhile, the world is run by dictators. It's run by, warlords. Most world leaders are corrupt. They're literally overseeing cruelty. The laws of their countries allow for animal abuse, human abuse, exploitation, right? So what's the priority? It's literally just keep the lights on and, make money. It doesn't matter who gets hurt or how badly they get hurt. So again, there's no limit on the severity of suffering that our society is willing to accept. Half of the children on the planet could be kidnapped tomorrow and tortured to death. And everyone would say, well, that's just life, right? No, there's a limit to how much that's just life we can accept. and the limit is nothing, basically. In a world of extreme cruelty like this one, we shouldn't accept any of it. And yet people say, no, that's just life, which is, again, an incredibly thoughtless, stupid statement to make. It's essentially saying, well, I can't really answer that, but I'm just going to say it's life as if I'm giving you a thought-out answer, when it's not actually one. I can't justify that, so I'm just going to say some bullshit instead. Oh, that's just life, right? Okay, so, we want to get some debates going. We want to get some conversations going. Nobody's joining to do that, so I've got to appeal again. Is there a hero out there in the crowd? Is there a hero watching? Is there someone that's going to hit the button, come on stage, and have a debate or a conversation? If you've got some questions, now's your chance. Let's go back to the chat. Let's try and answer some comments. Goes on a rant saying anyone who disagrees is immoral. Well, yeah, if you think that children should be in danger, that is immoral, right? There's no amount of pleasure that can justify child abuse, children being, tortured to death or suffering to death, starving to death, whatever it is. So yeah, that's immoral. Allowing that cruelty to children is immoral. And yeah, if you support children being in danger, then you're the immoral one. Okay, only parasites refuse the extinction, weak life stock supporting their masters. Only the selfish are resisting extinction, because extinction will benefit most life, right? So most life will benefit from extinction. They're going to benefit from not being forced into extreme hell, okay? They're going to benefit from not being forced to be eaten alive, right? Only the selfish ones are saying that this should continue, and these same people are the oppressors themselves. They're the ones supporting the meat industry, the animal exploitation industry, supporting, just infinite children being born with zero regard for their conditions. I mean, that's kind of like, basically life deserves the highest consideration possible. It should have, the absolute highest consideration, the highest priority. And yet, we have zero regard right now, zero regard for the conditions. We see a life form, get eaten alive as a baby, and we don't say, wow, they'd have been better off not being born. We just say, wow, isn't that interesting? Right? Zero regard for the suffering, zero regard for the life form itself. We care more about the species. Oh, it's an interesting species, isn't it? Yeah. Well, they're all being tortured to death, right? So we're looking at the wrong things, we're caring about the wrong things. Nature documentaries, for example, it's not about, is the life form okay? It's about, oh, look at it die, isn't that interesting? Oh, look at it, it's just lost two limbs, lost its legs and it's bleeding to death, isn't that interesting? No, it's horrible, it's unacceptable, and we should feel compassion for these victims and prevent their suffering. So, you've got different types of suffering in the world. Some of them are more temporary, like, you're in prison for a year or something. But, you want to be safe from that. You want to be safe from, losing a hand or something. But, the worst thing possible, which you really need the most safety from, is a life of extreme hell, right? A life of, pure extreme suffering. You're eaten alive as a baby, right? So that's the more important safety, okay? Because the suffering is way worse in that situation than stubbing your toe, right? So there's like almost two different types of safety in that sense. Most people traditionally think of safety as wear your seatbelt, take your vitamins, but they're ignoring the real danger, which is being trapped in a life of hell and extreme suffering. And yeah, basically they're just ignoring it. So it's because of that, it's almost like a different type of safety, because it's just such an alien concept, right? The safety from being forced to exist, safety from a life of hell, it's kind of a concept that doesn't really exist for most people. I guess the closest you could get to it is saying like, if I was going to be kidnapped, I'd rather just die rather than be, taken to a dungeon and tortured. Right, queue is still empty, guys. So, still looking for people to come up. I'd really like to have some interesting discussions and conversations. Could be you. If you're a supporter of Extinction or the channel, come up and say hello. Again, if you've got questions or you want to debate against it, come up and say hello. See, there's a lot of people in the chat, in the comments, but, nobody in the queue right now. So let's go back to the comments. Let's go back to some questions. For real, his own ideology says it shouldn't exist. What are we talking about? Self-refuting. No, you guys aren't making sense. All right, let's get Fit Central back on. Fit Central, hello again. In 3, 2, 1, and no, it's not loading. It's not loading. All right, out of desperation, we're going to get back on Inyenzi, who has been desperate to come back on. So let's do it, although I still reserve the right to kick him. Hello.
Yeah, I would say when you say safety, that means not being born, right?
Yeah.
But that comes at when you say safety from suffering, that comes at the cost of not being born. And so what do you say to the people that say, well, I choose that cost. I choose to be born even though it comes at extreme risk?
Well, no one chooses to be born.
Okay, well, I'm alive now, right? And so I can make a value judgment.
But nobody chooses though, right?
Yes, I know. Birth is imposed.
So it's forced onto you.
So, well, I'm not sure what you say force. I think
So the reason why it's wrong to force things onto people, like, I wouldn't force, 3 different people to eat nuts, right? Because some of them might have an allergy, right? So the idea that it's acceptable to just force things onto people, and if they don't like it, then screw them, it's wrong.
Look, I'll tell you, I'd agree. Essentially, I'm an anti-natalist, but I don't agree with the forcing of violence upon the natural world.
But the violence is
when it comes at the cost of their not being born.
Right.
Yes, I agree.
Extinction is nothing, right? The real problem is existence and life, right? Extinction does nothing to cause suffering. It prevents it. It abolishes it.
Yes, but that comes, practically, that comes at the cost of violently imposing your ideology.
But if you care about violence, then extinction is your friend, right? It's like saying you wouldn't murder Hitler, basically. You would choose the worse of the 2 evils, the larger of the 2 evils. That's what you're advocating for. You're saying, right, we can get an injection to cure cancer, but no, the injection's too painful, is what you're saying.
No, what I'm saying is, when I observe the natural world, I have the same sort of moral affront that you do, right? I think it's horrible. I think it's awful.
Right.
But then I think, well, if you observe the instincts and the desires of these animals, they want to live, right?
But they don't want to be eaten alive as babies, and yet that's what happens to most of them. So you're appealing to something completely irrelevant. You're appealing to, animals and babies don't really make decisions. They don't understand enough to want to be alive, really. So you're talking out your ass.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that.
Yeah, you are.
You are imposing a violent ideology upon a natural world.
Life is a violent thing which is imposed on all.
Judgment.
What are you talking about?
You're making an aesthetic judgment of the world, and you're imposing it upon animals that want to live.
Life is imposed on animals.
Suffering is a moral affront to you.
So you think that 99% of animals being eaten alive as babies is better than it not happening?
No, I don't think that. I think
we're starting to see some cracks forming here.
You're not listening. I think
we're starting to see some cracks forming.
I think the natural world is hell. The natural world is awful, but I don't think that violently imposing your ideology upon the natural world, because it's like a moral affront to you, I think that's wrong.
Why?
I think the natural world should go on as humans should go extinct.
Why?
Why? Because I don't like violence upon animals. I don't like violently imposing.
But if you don't like violence, if you don't like violence on animals, there'll be much more if you don't do extinction. So you should, if you don't like violence on animals, you should choose the lesser of violences on animals.
If I don't like violence, then I choose non-violence, right? And I let the natural world be as it may.
You're choosing the larger amount of violence.
No, the natural
No.
world is choosing that. It's not. It's not.
No,
It's not on me.
no. You're the one saying it should be this, right? So you're choosing. You just said that's your choice.
I'm not saying it should be
The
anything.
natural
world
world
will do
doesn't
what it
choose
does. We have
anything.
no control
The
over it.
natural world doesn't choose anything. What you said is stupid, right? There is no sort of brain out there in nature making decisions.
Yes, the organisms in the natural world, they run on instincts and genetics, and they just do what they do. And so we humans can come into the world and we can make a value judgment on it and say, hey, this is awful. The natural world is disgusting, it's immoral. But I don't think that the reaction to that should be, hey, let's fucking nuke it. Let's impose our ideology upon
We're
those
not
animals.
proposing to
Let's
nuke
enforce
it.
violence upon them.
We're not imposing ideology on animals. It's about preventing suffering for them. So
Well,
the
it's not
thing
that.
is that
The only
animals.
prevention of suffering is
Listen,
our own
animals are
offspring.
having the ultimate harm imposed on them, and we're saying we should put an end to that. You're saying that we shouldn't prevent the ultimate harm to animals.
Exactly. I'm saying the only
Exactly.
moral
Yes,
choice
you're
we
saying
can
we
do
shouldn't prevent
is
the
to
ultimate
not
harm
have
to
our own
animals.
children.
Why?
Why? Because it's a violent ideology that wants to omnicide upon the entire natural world.
Say again?
When you look at their behaviors and that, because you have a violent ideology that wants to impose a fucking global omnicide
How is
on
it
animals
violent?
that want to live. Because how else are you going to achieve the end of all
Right,
natural
but
life?
isn't
Necessarily
life
must be
itself
violent.
more violent?
Yes.
Right? So if violence is the problem, then we should choose the lesser of two situations, right? The best situation, the one with less violence.
But
You
how?
can't
How are
say
you?
you
How?
can't say,
You can't
you shouldn't do this
non-violently
because
end
it's
the world.
violent, and then in the next breath say, violence should continue forever.
Why not?
So that's it,
If I
you're
say
done.
violence
You're
is wrong,
finished, you're officially cooked and served for the second time in this stream now. So that's why you were out the first time, and now you're out the second time, you're done. All right, let's see who else we've got. We've got a Ranger fan coming on. Let's bring them up. Hello, how's it going?
Hello, I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'd love to say a few words to you. Just glad for the opportunity. I've seen your lives, and I completely agree with everything you say. I heard what you just said to the last guy. Wow, really? I can't believe. Well, it's the truth, mate. There's only one way of eliminating the horrible suffering, and that is through extinction, because we have no alternative. Man can't be trusted. It is a violent. These animals want to live, for example. I think it's absolutely disgusting, and it breaks my heart every single day. But of course, we just have to move forward to our life. And I just want to say a few words to you. I think what you're doing is incredible. I'm lost for words. I just hope you can hear that. You're unbelievable, mate. You keep doing what you're doing. It's incredible to watch, and it's incredible that you're coming up and telling how it is.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We have to speak out for the victims. Again, lives worse than not being born, right? That's the problem. The main problem that we're dealing with here is, lives where you would have been much better off not being born. This group, this group of victims and sufferers is the majority of the population on this planet. It's not a minority. The majority of the population on this planet is in the group of would have been better off not being born. And yet this is the most discriminated against group, those who would have been better off not being born. It's the most sort of ignored group and condemned to suffer group, right? If you mention this problem, which is again the ultimate harm, there's nothing worse that you can do to someone or an animal than to force them into a life of extreme hell. Again, you can't even imagine something worse. It is the worst thing even imaginable. And yet that's what we're doing to the majority of the population. If we're going to have rules about what's right and wrong, what's allowable, what's acceptable, then inflicting the ultimate harm, the worst harm possible, that should be against the rules, right? And yet people somehow think that's okay. It's not okay. No individual deserves to suffer, especially not so that others can have fun. Again, the current situation is that the majority of life on this planet would be better off not being born, forced into cruelty and misery. And so we have a tiny minority of the planet having fun at the expense of all of the others, not helping them, not doing anything to even consider them, but just, going about life and, dancing and having fun while being essentially in an ocean of children being tortured and, trying to find ways to glorify it and romanticize it so that they can accentuate their own pleasure while, enjoying the suffering of these children. So even if it were a minority, then it would still be completely unacceptable. Even if there was just one child being tortured so that others can have fun, it's not acceptable. Inflicting suffering, putting children, animals, humans, anyone into a life of misery for fun, it's not acceptable, okay? It will never be acceptable. There will never be an exchange rate where it says, you can get this much ice cream makes up for this many children being tortured, okay? Currently, people have this bizarre mentality that there's some sort of balance, that there's some sort of mystical balance that says it's okay, keep the children being tortured, it's just about, works out mathematically, we've done the maths, this much child abuse is okay as long as this many people are watching Netflix. No, there's nothing like that. There's no amount of happiness that can be justified, by a child being abused. There's nothing like that. So what we're trying to say, what we've always been trying to say, is that in relation to safety from extreme suffering, in relation to safety for children, having fun, pleasure, life existing has zero value in relation, right? If we have to make a choice between protecting children and, having fun, we should protect the children. But most people don't understand this. They don't get the mentality. They're against the idea. They think that life should just continue no matter what, no matter who gets hurt, no matter how many get hurt, doesn't matter. It's almost like their only principle in life is for life to continue and to exist. And it doesn't matter how bad it is for how many. Again, like the vast majority could be getting tortured horrifically, and these people, these oppressors, humans would say, it's fine, let it continue, I'm having fun, I'm okay, so what's the problem? And yet we are in that situation where the majority of life is being tortured horrifically, and a small minority of life, humans, are saying, it's fine, I'm having fun, so what's the problem? So this is the definition of immorality, right? Morality, the opposite of this is to say no suffering is acceptable. We should provide safety for all life, right? Not discriminate. So you've got like selfish humans, and then you've got, effectively a new subspecies of humans almost, where they've managed to escape that primal nature. So as I've explained many times in my videos and streams, the reason people support suffering, the reason they say child abuse is a good thing, it's because they've been brain damaged by nature, by evolution. Only the stupid ones reproduce, and so we only are left with the ones whose parents were stupid enough to reproduce. And this cycle reinforces itself more and more and more. So it's not like we've just got the minimum version of it. We've got the strongest and worst version of this brain damage, which evolution has imposed onto humans to make them blind to suffering, blindly accept, existence, to be stupid, essentially, to be animalistic. Because making life and humans more animalistic made them reproduce more. So that's what, evolution did. That's why we have such crazy people. And it's just now that, some humans are starting to wake up, to overcome this primal nature that most humans are locked into and completely incapable of escaping. That, they literally support animal abuse, child abuse. I mean, look, I'm not even a vegan, but most people won't become a vegan, right? You say, would you torture an animal to death for a sandwich? And they'll say yes. So even on that basis alone, we can easily see that most people are extremely immoral, okay? So that's why we have such a terrible world. But the good news is that, some humans are starting to evolve out of this primal lock, essentially, this trap. Because people just cannot escape the nature of their own brains, their own minds, which evolution has trapped them into so that they would reproduce without questioning it. You look at a council estate, Debbie down the street, she's got 10 kids, she's planning on having 5 more, and her IQ is about 50 points, okay? So that's the world we live in, where those are the ones having kids, the ones not having kids, they go extinct. We're only left with a stupid world by default, right? It has to be stupid because, life won't reproduce if it's intelligent. It just won't do it. So it has to be stupid. So the pro-extinction movement is going against all of this suffering and trying to abolish it all. As soon as you sort of evolve out of the animalistic nature of saying, oh, suffering's good, just have to care about myself, that's it. Once you get out of that, you say, right, okay, wow, the biggest problem is suffering, let's abolish it. That's essentially the distinction, the difference between being, a Neanderthal, an unevolved human, and an intelligent being, one that can say, child abuse is bad, and I'm not, embarrassed to say it, right? Most people that come on here say child abuse is a good thing. Like, they literally verbatim say it. So that's like brain damage, basically. And we need to evolve out of that, to do better than that. And the best thing that we can do is to abolish suffering. It's the most urgent thing, right? So if we're going to stop being animals and be like, right, I don't have to reproduce, I don't have to be, a slave to my nature anymore, what am I going to do? Well, the answer is, work towards a better world, work towards a perfect world, and work towards the abolition of suffering, work towards a world where we understand that, children's suffering is more important than people having fun. So if we could have a world with no life, no possibility of life, then that means that there's total safety for all from being forced into an unsafe life, a life that you didn't want, and a life of misery, a life of suffering, right? If there's no life, no possibility of life, then there's absolutely no possibility of anything going wrong. No children being tortured, no children suffering, no animals being trapped in lives of hell, no humans being depressed, forced to exist against their will. So that's it, life is a bad thing. We have to understand that. Life in nature, in particular, is a bad thing. We are still in nature, okay? Until we have conditions of 100% safety where if you force life to exist, there's God tier level certainty that it's going to be okay, then life shouldn't exist. So that's what extinctionism is about. It's about making sure that life only exists in safe conditions. So we're not like, obsessed with life going extinct or anything like that. It's just about what's rational, what's the correct thing for the world. And safety comes first, essentially. So, if life is going to exist in extremely brutal conditions where most of it is getting tortured to death, then it shouldn't exist. But if we can have like heaven-like technology, then okay. But it has to be 100% safe, like zero chance of ever going wrong, not even an abstract, far-fetched chance of it ever going wrong. There's no point having life exist if there's any danger whatsoever. The danger simply outweighs the benefits in an infinite ratio. And that's another important thing to understand, that it's the infinite value thing. So again, there is no exchange rate of amount of children being tortured that can justify people being happy, right? It's not like, well, if 10 people have a good life, then one child having a bad life is okay. No. The good life has zero value in comparison to the bad life, okay? The good life is optional. You don't need it, okay? It's completely optional. Whereas a bad life, avoiding that is not optional, right? That's a horrific thing, to be trapped in a life of extreme hell. There's nothing optional about that, okay? So that's why we have to prioritize that. Life itself is optional, okay? It doesn't need priority. It has very low value, essentially. When we're dealing with extreme urgency and a world of triage and who do we help, who do we prioritize? It's got to be the victims and the sufferers, the ones that need help, right? If you're in a life of extreme hell, you need help, right? You desperately need help. You can't do without the help. But whereas if you don't get to exist and have fun and just have a good life, a generally okay life, nothing bad happens, right? You don't need that. You can do without it. You're not going to suffer if you don't have it. It's optional. So yeah, we have a society that is incapable of prioritizing the right thing, which is those who actually need our help the most. This is all because of evolution causing brain damage so that we would keep reproducing. If you understand how evolution works, then this should be quite clear to you. The mutations with each new generation will have different outcomes, right? And essentially, we will evolve to just keep reproducing because that's how reproduction works. Reproduction is the force of nature responsible for all of this. Again, think of it as like, life getting smarter goes extinct, life getting more irrationally obsessed with having kids, right? That doesn't go extinct. That works really well. And then life who were, kind and, nice to others, they weren't willing to murder and to rob to survive. The selfish ones are, right? So the more selfish you are, the more greedy you are, the more egotistical you are, the more likely you are to survive and to have loads of kids. So nature and evolution, reproduction guarantees the worst possible life forms. Now, the thing is that evolution does produce incredible things, and the longer you leave it, the more amazing the life form gets, which is why we ended up with humans. But the thing is that while humans are amazing, they also had to be bastardized and twisted by evolution. And as we got more and more amazing as a species, from Neanderthal to Homo sapien and stuff, the control mechanisms for making us continue to unhealthily obsess with reproduction and survival, they had to get more powerful as well, meaning that we essentially became hypocrites. Because an intelligent being wouldn't say that child abuse is acceptable and that suffering is acceptable. So the structures in the brain responsible for making us irrational had to get more powerful, and that's where we are today, where the evolution has continued to the point where amazingly the structures for irrationality supporting reproduction are finally being beaten by the improvements that evolution has also made in terms of making more complex life forms, like humans. So we've finally evolved to the point where we can actually beat the system. Okay, so it's only now that life on this planet has gotten to the point where it can beat the cruel system that has imprisoned life. So life itself is being imprisoned by nature, right? So no one's asking to be here. Nature is doing this to us. And especially for animals, they're being put into terrible bodies, terrible brains, terrible lives. So it's all a bad thing. And it's only now that we can actually solve this problem. And that's what we're doing. So the solution is an organization, a movement. As individuals, we can't, really change the world. We have to do it as an organization. In the same way that governments are the right way to do things, that's what we need to do. We need to use organizational power as activists to come together and leverage that power and change the world, just as other movements have done in the past with, civil rights, gay rights, etc. So, yeah. We are growing the movement to make the abolition of suffering possible. Hello.
Oh, hey, what's up, dude?
Yo.
I've seen you on here so many times, and I think this is such a fun conversation before we get into it. So I heard you before I came in here, but I want to just make sure I understand your position completely. I don't want to think, oh, some things get hurt, so we should just end it all. So give me the best rationality behind your position.
Yeah, so safety from a life of extreme suffering is more important than having access to a life where you can maybe have a bit of fun, maybe survive, right? So currently we prioritize life existing no matter who gets hurt and how badly they get hurt or how many get hurt. But that's wrong. It doesn't make sense. We should be prioritizing the victims and their safety. You know, suffering is the worst thing in the world. It's too terrible and extreme to allow, right? You know, what's more important, somebody winning £100 or, you know, protecting a baby from being abused to death, right? So safety comes first, and it should come first. And in a world like this, a dangerous and terrible world like this, only non-existence can provide 100% safety from an unacceptably bad life and from being forced to exist in this terrible world against your will.
It seems as though like we're loading the term safety, right? Like there seems to be an issue with having like an incomparable statement, right? So when you say safety, we seem to imply that you are existing anyway. I don't think that you can say safety. You can't say that non-existence is better because non-existent implicitly allows like a state of non-existing. There is no metric to compare existence to with nothingness.
Why not?
What exists in non-existence?
Safety, peace.
You don't experience those things though. They're not real.
Well,
This all requires experience to process.
no, I mean, like, you know, you can a tree can get chopped down, right? And even if it's not sentient, something can still happen to you, even if you're not sentient, basically.
Well,
You know,
something can happen to your body if you're not conscious. But the argument here is that you would prefer non-existence to existence on the sole fact you would be safe in non-existence, but you're not there to feel safe. There's nothing there. So I'm wondering, you might make the argument that because something happens to you, then you're safe. But who's experiencing the safety? There is no experience of safety
well,
whatsoever.
you would be experiencing the safety.
No, you're passed away. You're not alive. You can't.
Well,
experience
you wouldn't be
no
consciously experiencing it, but you would be benefiting from the safety.
How can you experience something if you were never alive?
Like I said, you wouldn't be consciously experiencing it, but you would be benefiting from it.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So square off that circle for me. You can experience safety even when you have an inability to experience anything at all. You're trying to make the comparison between.
But think of it this way: if I said this will benefit future generations, you wouldn't say stop the fucking phone. Future generations can't benefit, right?
Well, that's essentially what you're saying, though. You're saying this
How?
will benefit all life, all future life, when there will be no life to talk about. So how do we? There's a contradiction in your statement inherently.
Okay, yeah. So the thing is, right? If our world is effectively hell, which it basically is, then making sure that life doesn't get sent here to suffer terribly is a benefit to them.
Now, what makes you say? So there's a claim within that. I hope you don't
The
think
thing
I'm
is,
trying
a life,
to.
a life where you would have been better off not being born. Obviously, you benefit from not being born by default, by definition.
You're making the assumption that you would be better off not being born.
Who?
You.
What about myself?
About everyone.
Yeah, because it provides safety from extreme dangers, and that's more important than anything else.
Not really. I mean,
Why
if
not?
the absence of pain is good, then the absence of pleasure should be logically very bad or depriving of
But
pleasure.
it's not. No, it's not actually a bad thing. It's just a neutral state, and pleasure isn't necessary, whereas safety is.
Why is safety the axiom? I don't think you can
What do you
fulfill
mean?
that claim.
How do you mean?
That is the foundation of your logic, that there needs to be safety, which, again, there is no safety to experience and non-experience, but you're saying that the absence of pain or suffering is good, but it's not. So I'm struggling to.
Right, let me ask you a question, okay? A pedophile kidnaps a woman, takes her to a dungeon, impregnates her, forces her to give birth. And then when the baby comes out, on the very first day, he tortures it, abuses it, and then over the next few weeks, tortures it to death, basically. So would you say that you wouldn't stop him from kidnapping the woman because, the child being born is more important?
No, I would absolutely stop him. But
Wow.
your issue
Okay,
here
good.
is
There you go. So
there's
preventing
still
life. So that baby would benefit, right?
not necessarily,
Wow.
right?
So it'd be better for the baby to be tortured to death.
Well, you're removing the axiom of choice, right?
Yeah. So
You're
so you
removing
think that
choice
it's
in the entire
necessary?
situation.
So that for you, there's no other option. The baby has to be tortured to death.
In your analogy,
No, I'm asking
you're
you.
making the
I'm
claim
asking
that
you.
all life,
I'm asking
this
you.
is not analogous.
I'm asking you.
What's
Why
the
not?
symmetry between
Why?
abducting a woman and torturing her, forcing her to have a kid, and then torturing that kid to the life I'm living now?
But we're not talking about your life.
So this is just, but you're, dude, like you have to see what you're doing,
I'm
right?
asking you a
Like,
question, and you're avoiding it. You're trying not to answer. So
but
I
you're
think
making
you're
a false
getting.
dichotomy.
All right, we're gonna give
How is this
Anna
analogous?
Kit. We're gonna give him a last chance to debate properly. Otherwise, he's gonna be out.
Well, I'm
So come on,
rejecting
do
your
it again.
analogy.
Go again. Try and do better. Last chance.
I'm rejecting your analogy
Why?
because it's not analogous.
Why?
Because I'm not a woman who's being forced to give birth to a baby,
What's
and
that
then
got to
you
do with
have to
anything?
like. You're making this claim to justify that
What
all
claim?
life needs to
What
end.
claim?
The claim that you would prevent life from living to spare it from suffering. But there's levels to suffering, right? Like you're making this seem like that horrible instance of suffering is analogous to general suffering that we all go through.
When
It's
did
not
I
a
say
case
that?
that.
When did I say that?
So you're just putting out this analogy for no reason.
That's so. Stop with the straw mans. Okay.
This isn't a straw man. You put it the analogy.
Yeah, I
I'm
gave you
rejecting
the
your
analogy
analogy.
to see if you would support preventing life from being forced to exist and suffering terribly. And you said yes, you would. So that's what the pro-extinction movement is about doing.
But you're not extincting a race of people who were born like this, right? Like just because I see your point you're making,
What do you mean?
but the issue is the severity of the suffering that you're morally loading the statement to make it seem like all life experiences that particular form
Well,
of suffering.
no, I never
and
said
you
that. That's a straw man.
So you just pulled that analogy out for no reason.
Well, no, you're just pulling a straw man out of your pocket. So let's not straw man, okay? So again, the reason I made that analogy was to see again if you would support prevention of life being forced into extreme suffering, and you said yes. So that's all that we're doing, and that's what we should do because it provides
That's
safety.
not all you're doing. You're making the choice for all life, not just in this particular instance.
Yeah, but somebody
you're
has to
struggling
make the decisions,
understand
right?
this.
Somebody
like
has to.
you're not
pull the
allowing
shots.
for nuance in your analogy at all.
Like what nuance?
Dude, you're joking, right?
All right, that's it. This is your last chance. Don't give me a bullshit answer like that.
Sorry.
Answer the question or you're goodbye. All right, he's done. He could no longer debate. You're cooked and served. All right. I didn't even kick him, He basically kicked himself. He actually did leave himself. All right, cooked and served. Another one down. Let's move on to our next guest.
Good
Carol,
afternoon.
how you doing?
Hi. I think we spoke a long time ago.
Yes, yeah, a day or two ago, I think.
Yes. Sorry about the disconnection.
It's okay.
So I got a few points made. I've read your manifesto, seen the circle of life. Obviously, you think you're birthed, you go through suffering, and then you just die. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. Well, that's what it says on the website. So you don't think that you get birthed, you go through.
You're
a load of
doing the
suffering,
exact
and then
same
you
thing
die.
as the last person, which is to straw man and say that there's no nuance or complexity to life in different situations.
Okay.
So obviously, that would be a stupid position for us to take. And if that's the level of intelligence that you're bringing to this debate, and you can't imagine us being more intelligent than that when we actually are, then it's not going to go well.
Okay. Then explain your mindset. Explain what pro-extinctionism is about.
Well, without total extinction, you can't abolish suffering. So, you have to have total extinction. And it's worth it because prevention of suffering is more important than anything else. And total extinction is the only way to do that.
And how exactly do you think that we will... So you're saying we extinct everything?
Yeah.
Okay. And how do we go about extincting everything?
With euthanasia.
Okay, so where do we start?
With the animal kingdom.
Okay. So do you think we would die out before the animal kingdom?
We would have to try not to.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just bring up. So let's say we kill all, red meat first, lambs, cows, because I would say probably farm animals go through the most suffering because
No, actually, wild animals suffer worse than farm animals.
Okay, fine. So we're going for wild animals first.
Well, ideally both at the same time.
Okay. So how would you, euthanize bees or these worms? How would that be done?
Well, we have to do the research to find the best way and produce the best way.
Okay. So for a start, if you were to kill the bees, 90% of the crops that we eat are pollinated by these bees.
Yeah, so we need to remove our dependence, our reliance on them as well.
Right. So how exactly do you think we would be able to go about this without, completely killing out most of the human race?
Yeah, well, like I say, we work towards removing our dependence on animals and then just remove the animals.
Okay. So once we've killed these animals, or we're in the process of killing these animals, what will we be eating? Because obviously humans do need something to eat.
Yeah, there's vegan food.
Vegan food being plants and crops, and
Yeah.
without the bees, how would we make these crops? Or without even worms or decomposers, which turn soil into nutrients that grows these crops? How exactly would we do this?
Well, that's the thing is that we have to find the way to do it. So the
Okay.
thing it would be a lot easier if we had a book saying 100 years from now this is exactly how you'll use this technology, and 50 years from now this technology will exist and this is how it's going to work. But we don't have that. We don't have access to the future. We don't have access to the easy mode, right? We have to find the answers. We have to build the answers. Life isn't going to be just given to you on a plate. It doesn't work like that.
Okay, that's fair. Now, my second point is reading your manifesto. It says that your stages of doing this act, you will be boycotting the government.
I mean, I
That is
didn't.
that is on your website. I can show
Okay.
you where it is.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't write the manifesto, but
Okay.
but also the manifesto is not like super critically important. It's more about the spirit of the message.
Okay.
But go ahead. Tell me what it is you found.
Well, I would say boycotting's quite it can turn into a violent thing, and you were quite anti-violence. So how exactly will you,
Well, look, if we need to do a violent revolution, then that's what we'll do.
So in order to possibly,
Maybe we can do it peacefully. Maybe we can't. Right? All options are on the table. Why not?
I just feel that you're saying your argument is to get rid of all violence. You have to make more violence, possibly. Obviously,
Do you know what? Do you know what happened in World War II?
Tell me.
Violence was coming, and so they used violence to defend themselves, and nobody said, "Wow, that's evil." So now you're saying that basically, all of the soldiers in World War II, they were very bad people trying to defend their countries because they shouldn't have lifted up a weapon, right?
But these people aren't saying that we need to use all this violence to eventually lead to the human extinction or the extinction of everything.
What's the difference? How's it relevant?
There's quite a large difference.
Oh, okay. So one use of violence is acceptable and another isn't. So why is that?
Well, imagine so we're both from Britain. There's about 60 million people in Britain.
Yep.
So we're saying that 60 million people in Britain and these Nazis are trying to attack the country, trying to ultimately kill us. Yet a boycott that is trying to kill everyone, a government that is trying to encourage everyone to die, which is, I feel humans fight for humans.
What do you mean by a government encouraging people to die? What are you talking about?
So extinctionism, imagine if everyone on the earth was pro-extinctionism.
Yeah.
And I was, I didn't want to do that. What would be the result of me?
But it wouldn't be voluntary or optional. So yeah, euthanasia.
So I would eventually be forced to euthanize myself.
No, that would be cruel. It would be done for you.
Okay, so no matter the choice, I would be euthanized.
Unless there's like 100% safety for life, which is unrealistic. So, you could reproduce, you pose a threat to others, and then, life itself poses a threat to you. So extinction provides immediate safety from a bad life and a bad death as well.
Okay, interesting. Now I want to talk about you. So tell me, your life, your upbringing? Have you ever, have you had a good, quite,
Why do you ask?
I feel people who have bad childhoods, who have bad experiences, may come on these apps, may come to a mindset, or may.
So you've run out of counter arguments, now you're going for personal attacks.
No, I'm purely just trying to understand you. If you don't want to talk about this,
When you said no there, what did you mean by, can you define no in that particular? Because you obviously meant yes, right?
What, that I was coming towards you? No.
Yeah.
More or less, I was just trying to understand how you've became pro-extinctionism, how you said that this is your right. Because I feel life itself,
It's just logic, right? So if you have some logic that says that children shouldn't be safe, let's hear it.
children, I would say no matter what, there will be, suffering. Like if we
Carol, you're
extinct
struggling
ourselves.
here.
Pardon?
So why can't we get rid of suffering? Why wouldn't total extinction work?
Suffering isn't a human problem. It's everywhere. Think about
Yeah. So we need to help all life. So it doesn't matter what species they are. We should help them.
Now, I'm not going to go on an argument about aliens because that's absurd.
Okay, but animals at least, right?
We'll talk. We'll stick stick to Earth. But there are, how did evolution come? We didn't just spawn out of nowhere. We evolved. So eventually, it will come back, and we wouldn't have done anything. We would have purely just.
Our mission is about preventing life from developing. So that's actually the main part of our mission.
I feel taking away the suffering, life is beautiful. I mean, I feel looking outside.
But that's not the reality, right? That's a fantasy. A coping mechanism.
It's just. But
most life isn't beautiful. It's horrific suffering.
I mean, I think I've grown up, and I don't think I've experienced this horrifying suffering that you're talking about.
So if most animals are being eaten alive as babies, then yeah, most life is terrible suffering.
But the thing is, think about ants.
Yeah.
Like how they come out.
All right, forget ants. There's loads of species.
Okay, but all these species, that is the way of life. That is something that we cannot help.
Why?
How? Because that is how the world works.
What does that mean? That doesn't make sense.
The thing is, suffering is a part of life. I think everyone in this chat can say that life is beautiful. Life isn't just horrible.
Carol, can you give us a logical argument?
What logical argument would you like me to make? I feel.
Well, you're not using logic right now. So if you're going to say things,
we'll go back to with plants. So would you get rid of plants? Would they stay?
Yeah, all plants are gone. All possibility of life, right?
Right.
So it could evolve. Then no, it's got to go.
Okay. So without plants, what is your plan?
Huh?
Without plants, without these animals, what is our plan for humans? We just start dying?
Well, by the time we need to get rid of plants, we probably wouldn't need humanity either.
Interesting. I just feel. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to.
Well, we may be able to have, fully artificial food without plants.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to shit on your mindset.
Well, please do, Carol. No. You say that, but it almost sounds like you can't. So please do shit on it.
I just feel it's quite. I mean, it is like I see the sense in it. I just feel that it's quite an absurd argument.
Why?
You're kind of so anti-human, I guess.
No,
I mean,
we want a perfect world for humanity. We want to improve conditions for humans. We want the best world possible for humans, while they help other life.
but it's unrealistic.
Why?
Well, again, I'm not going to be, I'm not going
Do
to.
it. Give us your argument. Don't just baselessly make claims.
I just
Give us
feel
your argument.
there's not going to be a whole population that would agree to that.
Okay, that's a good argument, finally. So yeah, it will be very difficult to change the world. But, society has been progressing and changing throughout all of history. When people were protesting against slavery, the slave owners were saying, it's never going to happen. You're never going to change the world, just like you're saying now. And yet it did change, right?
Why the fuck are we talking about slaves?
Because, forcing life to exist and suffer is an even worse form of slavery. But the reason we're talking about slaves is because it was legal and then the system changed. So that's what we're trying to do. And yes, it will be an uphill battle. It will be difficult. But the slave owners said it was impossible and they were wrong. And so everyone else saying it's impossible is wrong as well. Okay, it might be difficult. And I agree that it's probably the most difficult movement to try and grow and spread because people are so against the idea on an instinctive
I
level.
just feel it's just going to take like 1,000 years.
Look, we don't know how long it will take. But think of it this way, right? There's so many different ways the future could play out. It's very possible that we won't have a government 50 years from now. It'll all be AI, right? That's very possible. So one of the
I don't
main...
think that's not very possible.
Okay, 200 years from now.
No, I don't think AI can make human decisions. I can't get ChatGPT to tell me.
Yeah, but you're basing that decision on today, right? You can't say what AI is going to be like 100, 1,000 years from now based on your free tier version ChatGPT in 2026.
Nah, I can't see that. Just like what Keir Starmer as ChatGPT. Just that's not happening.
Well, that's the point, is that Keir Starmer and all of these politicians are rubbish. We need AI. We need better systems.
Nah, not on my watch.
So you would rather have corrupt old white men, basically.
They're not all old white men.
It just sounds like you prefer inequality, unfairness. And...
No, I just prefer being human. I don't really want to be dead.
But we're not asking you to be dead.
Well, you are. You're asking me to be extinct.
No, I'm not.
So humans can still be alive.
We need humans to reproduce, to continue strong and healthy for hundreds, if not thousands of years, while they help other life. Right? If animals, don't get made extinct, they'll suffer for billions of years. So it's going to take a long time to complete that. And yeah, we have to stick around, have a great life, a great time while we're doing it.
Oh, so we're not suffering.
No, humans are suffering, and we're going to make.
We have a great life.
Yeah, no, look, there will be lots of suffering, but we should have the best life possible while we're carrying out the mission.
But there's still going to be suffering.
Yeah, but it's the lesser of two evils.
So there's still going to be suffering. So what's your point? It's like, okay, maybe like in a year or so I'll go do it. Like I really don't understand this.
Look, someone trying to make money, right? And they spend a penny to make £1 billion. You wouldn't be like, wow, what a waste of a penny. I thought you were trying to save money. Don't spend your money, right? So that's the same thing that you're saying. Don't spend a penny to make £1 billion.
How do you spend a penny to make £1 billion?
Because our suffering is a drop in the ocean compared to billions of years of animal suffering. So if we have to suffer for 1 million years to cause animal extinction, then it's still the lesser of two evils, the situation with less suffering.
Yeah, my dog doesn't suffer, so he's fine. Can my dog say?
Carol, you're done. You're finished. You're cooked and served. Your dog is completely irrelevant. You're desperate to just say nonsense at this point. Okay, bringing on our next guest is Touche. Hello. Hello. Bonjour. Okay. Maybe they're lagging. Let's kick them out and bring someone else on. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. Is this for real?
Yeah.
What do you mean by total extinction of all life? Like Like nothing exists in the world?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's the only way to make sure that children, humans, animals are safe from a bad life and from suffering.
A bad life?
Yeah.
But
Have
you
you
could still
never
have
heard of
a
that?
but you could still have a good life though.
What do you mean?
Yeah, just because there's some suffering doesn't mean you can't have a good life.
Are you talking about me in particular? Because this isn't about me. It's about, because this isn't about me. It's about, Okay, well, you're finished. You're done. You're cooked. Let's say it together. And served. Great. Okay. The queue is currently empty. So if you want to come up, now's a great chance. Let's have a debate. Let's have a conversation, discussion. Let's hear your questions. Yeah, there's literally nobody in the queue right now. No real people anyway with real brains. So we're gonna have to wait for someone to step up. Hit that button. I'll bring you on the stage. Let's have a chat. So, I always find it amazing when people say in the chat, like, "What? He destroyed you, host," after they've said, like, the most impossibly stupid things possible. They're so desperate, they've run out of anything even approaching a coherent argument. What about these children? Well, my dog's fine, right? And people are like, "Whoa, the host couldn't respond to that one. Whoa." It's amazing. There's a lot of people in the chat that I just feel sorry for them. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, we should work towards total extinction. Without total extinction, there's going to be new generations, there's going to be reproduction, and there's going to be more suffering. There's no way to, break the cycle of suffering without total extinction. Otherwise, there will be reproduction, and life will just keep on going for billions of years. So it has to be completely total. And, we're not really losing out on anything here. Some beauty and, worthless, unimportant things like that. They pale in comparison to the importance of providing safety from being forced to exist in unsafe conditions, right? Nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves to have that forced onto them. Nobody deserves to be in danger. Nobody deserves to be in risk like that. And, the vast majority of life being born here faces that danger. They fall to it. They get eaten alive as babies. They starve to death as babies. Most animals born in nature will die as children. Sea turtles, for example, have 200 children each cycle. And, why isn't the population expanding at a rate of 200 times each time they give birth? It's because they all die horrifically in horrible ways, right? So, if you could push a button that, guarantees that after passing away, your mother will be born as a baby animal which starves and then gets eaten alive, I'm guessing you wouldn't push that button, right? So, you wouldn't want to experience that. Your mother wouldn't want to experience being a confused baby that gets eaten alive. Nobody should, yet most do, right? So the majority of the population on this planet is getting the least consideration by the scumbag oppression of humanity. So, that we live in a world where no one is thinking what's right, what's wrong, what should we do. We live in a world where we've normalized the worst harm possible, forcing life to exist in suffering and to trap it in pure hell. How can we normalize the worst thing possible? It shouldn't be possible. We say, punching someone is bad. You shouldn't do that. You should go to prison. But, trap someone in a life of extreme hell, that's fine. Yeah, do it again. Do it a third time. Why not? How does that make sense? It doesn't, right? It simply doesn't. Basic morality is don't cause harm, don't allow harm, right? Especially not for fun or for personal pleasure. Maybe do it if you have to tackle a criminal to protect someone else. But, no. So we have pathetic morality, upside down morality, where it's like, oh, please, be polite to me. And then, but if you want to put an animal or a person into a life of extreme hell, by all means, go ahead, right? But just be polite to me while you do it to them. So that's the scumbag system we live in. We need to fight this. We need to change it. We need to say that no one deserves to suffer. No one deserves to be trapped in a life of extreme hell. The majority of life is facing that, so we have to help them. We have to actually do something about it. If they don't deserve it, we can help them. We should. And, we've had a lot of people coming on saying, what do you mean you're going to cause suffering to stop suffering? I would love to see these idiots say that to a police officer, right? Say, oh, why are you carrying a gun? You might hurt a criminal. That would be wrong. Or to say it to a soldier, right? Oh, you can't cause suffering to prevent suffering. It's completely stupid. It's completely idiotic. And I'm sure with 100% certainty that slave owners were saying the same crap when people were protesting, saying, no, you can't go to war. You can't cause suffering to prevent slavery. Well, they did, and it was the right thing to do. And, if we'd have listened to those idiots, we'd still have slavery. We wouldn't have, women's rights. We wouldn't have anything. These people just want everyone to go along with the status quo, to not rock the boat, not point out inequality and abuse and oppression. Just be a drone, be a sheep, be an NPC. Don't make me have to think or question anything. Just roll with it, roll with anything. Child abuse, look the other way. Right? That's the world we live in. We need to do better than that. We need to be against suffering. We need to be for justice. We need to be for, protection for the most innocent and the most vulnerable. Right? Currently, our society prioritizes rich, selfish scumbags and, is literally feeding all of these children into a meat grinder to fuel society for these scumbags. Life is a meat grinder. This world is a meat grinder, and 99% of life here will go straight into that grinder and, produce a little bit of paste for a small minority of scumbag humans who say, keep it going, keep the suffering going. It's beautiful. While they're torturing children, right? Most humans, again, are against the idea of abolishing, animal exploitation, right? They're against even just the idea of it. Even if you say, right, look, let's say there's no resource scarcity, we can solve, you've got infinite technology and, 1,000 years in the future, would you go vegan? The meat tastes the exact same, if not better than the real thing. People are still saying, no, let's keep the animal abuse going, right? It's ridiculous. The idea that people in this society have even a shred of morality is a joke. All right, let's get our next guest on, Harry JC. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
How's it going?
It's going good, it's going good.
Great. Do you have any questions for us?
So, you're saying about being like the animal abuse and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so how do you know like the animals get abused and stuff? Because like in some places, yeah, they may get like put in stuff and abused, but like some animals don't. If you know what I'm saying, like get put in nice, controlled environments and stuff.
Yeah, but the majority don't. The majority suffer terribly, right? And even if it were just a minority, it would still be wrong. So the only way to protect that minority or majority as we have it now is with total extinction, because that's the only way to make sure that no life is reproducing and having kids and forcing others to suffer, right?
Right. So you're saying the only way to stop the animal suffering is to make it go extinct.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you think about it, how are us people, they've been eating meat for like hundreds of years, like thousands of years. How are we gonna live off nothing? Like if we don't have any meat, if you get what I mean.
Well, there's already artificial meat, and I'm sure as society goes on, the years go by, it will get easier and easier.
Yeah, but with artificial meat, have like the ingredients in that and stuff, and the stuff that need to make that's gonna cause the world a lot more harm than it is killing and like it's for a
What
cow,
harm
for
are you
example.
talking about? What harm do you mean?
like all the chemicals they need to put in it, like the flavorings, the colours, the actual meat, it's like the artificial meat
No,
itself.
I mean, no, so it is the case that, vegans have the longest life, expectancy. So it's actually better for your health.
Yeah, but if you think about it, you're not really getting, say, like your natural. Like I get like some meat is processed, and that could lead to maybe life expectancy being like way lower. But if you think about it, the stuff that gets put into like the vegan, like say like burgers for example, it's not been proven to like be completely safe.
What the
And
hell do you
maybe
think is
that's
going in
like
your burgers?
beef.
Wow. Yeah. So, you think McDonald's is healthy. So you've got vegans living longer lives than everyone else, and you're going to McDonald's saying, "Nah, vegan food is bad for you."
Yeah, but if you think about it, there's a
Wow.
lot more meat,
Wow.
a lot more to meat than just McDonald's. Like you don't go to
Yeah, you've
McDonald's
got
every time you want
KFC
to
as well,
get
haven't you?
Yeah, true, but those are fast food chain restaurants. That's not a reason to completely get rid of it, like get rid of
What,
animals.
why?
Because you can get meat from like a lot more places, say like a shop
So,
or
but
like even a farm.
why should anyone have to be tortured for your benefit?
But in some cases they're not being tortured; they're literally just being killed. And
Well,
like
that's
say for
bullshit.
example
No, that's
with
nonsense.
chickens,
No, that's rubbish.
they're being how gone.
Because no life should be forced to exist into slavery.
But they're not going under slavery. They're not being forced to do anything. They're
What?
just living their life and being
I
killed.
don't think you've ever been outside, have you?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Well, if you knew the first thing about the world that you live in, then you would know that most animals in industry are being exploited terribly.
Yeah, they may be exploited, but like if you think about it, an
Yeah.
animal, yeah, if they get killed for human benefit, and
Yeah.
taking that away is only gonna put the money down, and like if the world
It's
like
only
the
going to put the money
economy,
down.
yeah, like the
I
economy
feel
and
like
stuff.
I'm talking to someone who must be under 18, perhaps under 18 months. So, for TOS, we're going to end it there, and we're going to move on to our next guest. Okay, Noah, how are you doing? Noah, we've got you on. Noah, hello. Talk to us, Noah. Noah gonna talk to us. All right. Oh, hello, Noah. You're back. Hi.
Yeah, you're chilled.
Okay, do you have any questions for us today?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Fuck off and kill yourself, you ugly bastard.
No. All right, the queue is currently empty. I'm gonna do maybe, it's getting to that time, guys, where I'm looking to go off. So maybe one or two more guests. If you've been desperate to come up, now's your chance. We need a hero from the audience to join us. We need a hero. Come and debate extinction. Come on. Look, if you're not an activist, tell us why, right? If you're a fan of this show, if you've been watching for a long time, or if you, whatever, right? Tell us, give us some insight into, what's stopping you from becoming an activist. Obviously, that's the most important thing for the movement, is getting new activists, right? That's why we're doing this. If without that component, then this would obviously be a complete waste of time, right? That's what most people do when they're screaming into the void on the internet. They just want to get their opinion out there. That's not what this is about. I wouldn't be doing this if there was no solution to it, which is growing the movement, getting new people to join the movement, explaining it to them, saying, look, all of this suffering is out there. We have a solution. We can and should do something about it. So help us do it. And people are joining the movement. We've had some successful new recruits. So the movement's growing. It's growing globally every day. We get people join the Discord and WhatsApp every single day, especially when I get a viral video. But yeah, all right. Well, no one's joining the queue. So last chances. If you want to have a debate or a conversation, now's your chance. But you're running out of time. We're all running out of time. If you've got suggestions for a video for me to do, I'd love to hear your suggestions. I'd absolutely love to hear them. So if you want to put that in the chat or put it in a direct message to me on TikTok, I'd love to hear your thoughts, your suggestions, your ideas. You know, if there's a topic about extinctionism and suffering that you want me to explore and to go into detail on, do a deep dive, let me know. Let me know what you're interested in hearing about, and I'd love to oblige. I've made videos for people before when they asked me to do it on a certain topic. So anyway, join the pro-extinction movement. Help us abolish all suffering for all life. Extinction is the only way to do it. You know, what's the alternative? There isn't one, right? There's no alternative for animals. There's no way to improve their conditions. There's no way to improve conditions for animals in nature. It's just, you can't even begin to do it, right? Where would you start? You can't. You can't remove the suffering from animals, otherwise they can't live and survive, right? Suffering is an essential component of being able to live and survive. If you remove it, you don't know when you've hurt yourself, you don't know when you're hungry, you simply cease to function. You die because you can't live, right? So there's nothing will ever help animals. There will never be an improvement in conditions for animals, ever, ever, ever. You know, most of them will continue to be eaten alive horrifically. Extinction is the only answer. It's the only solution. Nothing else could ever help them, ever, 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 right? And nothing else will provide 100% safety for them, ever, ever, right? You know, as long as life is being born, there will always be a chance of it going wrong and having a bad life, the worst life. So, yeah, only total extinction will solve that. Help us do this at the Pro-Extinction Movement. Join the community against suffering. And, yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow. You know, follow my channel. Check out my recent videos. Come and speak to me on Discord and WhatsApp. And, yeah, support the abolition of all suffering for all life. And we'll see